Welcome back. And I know for some colleagues that you're having slight technical issues just getting over the screen, and that's not aided, I recognise, as we're running about 10 minutes now behind schedule. So the conference programme hasn't changed. What we're going to do is reduce the time on the panel discussion. And I'm also going to ask workshop leaders if you could try and aim to be closer to 20 minutes than 25 minutes. And then we will aim to finish at 1 o'clock today, because I'm conscious everybody will have other commitments to go on to, but also you will need a lunch break after having all of the input from the various workshops this morning. We've had some fabulous workshops. I've seen some really good feedback from all of them, and such a really good range of contributions too. So just to reconfirm those timings, we're going to have a panel discussion now. You can raise questions in the chat if there's something you'd like to ask the panel, and I'll bring those in as we can. Then we're going to go on to, we will run both workshop sessions, because I know a number of colleagues wanted to go to at least 4, so we don't want to cut a workshop out, but I will ask workshop leaders if you could try and work to closest 20 minutes than 25, that would be much appreciated. So we're going to move now into the panel discussion. We've got 3 hopeful panellists joining us today. Helen Williams from Mudiad Maithrin, we're trying to track down. We can't find her in the digital room at the moment, but hopefully Helen will be able to join us on stage. We've got Vicki Neale from Social Care Wales and Suzi Gray from City and Guilds. Now, we asked all of the delegates that you had the opportunity to raise questions in advance. I've got a couple of those in front of me, but you can also use the chat, and I'll try and bring people in then as needed if you have got any questions for the panel. Due to time, normally at this point I'd ask Suzi and Vicki to give us a bit of their history and their biographies to introduce themselves, but I don't want to take away from the questions today. So welcome Suzi and Vicki. You're very welcome to join us today, and you will see in your delegate packs a bit more about the esteemed colleagues we have on the panel today. So I'm going to kick off straight into questions that delegates had sent through in advance. I will keep an eye on the chat as well if anybody else wants to come in. And let me start, and I'll throw this open to, let's start with you, Vicki. We've got a colleague who is just asking, how can we deal with some of the recruitment issues that we're facing in the sector at the moment? What ideas and suggestions do you have to support that?
I think we have serious issues in terms of recruitment at the moment, and I think there's not one thing that we can do. I think it's a series of things that we need to do, and that starts in schools. So where we work with Careers Wales, we work with schools to show that actually it's a fantastic career that you can have, and that there's career pathways, that it isn't just about if you don't know what you want to do, because we want the best people working with our most vulnerable, our children, my children. So I think it's looking at that, it's looking at how we can create opportunities for males, and so that we have a workforce that is representative of the sector that we live in and the communities that we live in. I think Sue mentioned about the We Care campaign, utilising the portal to advertise your jobs. We know there's real problems, but actually what we want to see is those traffic of those jobs going through the We Care portal. It's a free thing, and we can give you more information on that. But I think it is about making sure that people, when they come in, they have a good induction, and actually that they're supported. So I don't think there's one thing that we can do, and Welsh Government are also looking at ways that Business Wales can help and support. So I think it's a range of things that we need to do.
Thanks, Vicki. And I can see Larry's also commented in the chat about some of the challenges we got there with recruitment, and that I know a number of colleagues are working on, and the We Care Wales Advisory Group is also looking at where we could go further to support that work. So Suzi, let me come to you with another question from some of our colleagues today. So if I had a level 4 NVQ in CCLD, is the qualification still valid? Is it equivalent to the new level 5 qualification?
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit, Brian. Sorry, Sarah, you're breaking up just a little bit. Can you repeat the question for me? Apologies.
Yeah, of course I can. If I've got a level 4 NVQ CCLD, is my qualification still valid? Is it equivalent to the new level 5?
I think that we work really, really hard to recognise and value all qualifications. We have been working very closely with social care Wales and others to understand the journey that the individuals have been on and the qualifications that they do hold. But in order to complete the new level 5 qualification, there is an entry requirement to complete the new level 4 qualification. And so really it's a question as to whether the qualification that's been held by an individual is recognised by agencies called like CIW and Social Care Wales themselves. It's not something that we as an awarding body can make a decision on. What we can do is determine whether that qualification will allow entry into the new level 5 qualification. But if it's going to be recognised for someone who is in a leadership role, that's not something for us as an awarding body. That would be something for other organisations to make a decision on.
Thank you, Susie. Vicky, is there anything you want to add there? Because Vicky brought you in.
Yeah. So we have the qualification framework. I'm sure you all know about it, but it lists the legacy qualifications. So, for example, I've got an MVQ, and that was done some while ago. So when you go on the list framework, you'll see the legacy qualifications that are acceptable. And so sometimes it's difficult to compare apples to pears, but any qualification that is acceptable for is on our list, and the MVQ4 is acceptable. What we would hope is that we would see continual professional development, but those qualifications, so for example, the old NNEB that was seen as the gold standard is still there, it's still recognised, but obviously we would expect to see that people have updated their knowledge and skills. So what we're not saying to people is that they would need to retrain. Their qualification was valid at the time and it's still valid today.
Fabulous. Thank you both. And just one final question before we move back into workshops, and I'll open this to both of you to give a view on. How do we encourage more Welsh speakers into the sector? Susie, any thoughts from you?
Sorry, Vicky, if I jumped in ahead of you there. I think this is a question that aligns with earlier questions around recruitment. And I think it is about each and every one of us that are passionate about the early years sector to promote it and advocate for it, and to encourage the embracing of all languages and all cultural backgrounds, and make sure that there is representation of all cultures and all language backgrounds in our workforce. So I think we've got a shared responsibility there to try and encourage our young people or our adult returners to consider a career in this sector, and work really, really hard to showcase all of the benefits and the rewards that you get from working in such a diverse sector with lovely little people who make us smile every day.
Can I start in there as well? I think it's with being brave that sometimes, you know, I went through the Welsh education system. It's about encouraging our practitioners to use Welsh, even if it's incidental Welsh, that actually children don't mind if you make a mistake. You know, it is about using that. The more we use it, the more comfortable we are using it. I think the umbrella organisations, there's some training that you can do to encourage practitioners to use the Welsh that they have. So, because we know there are difficulties recruiting Welsh speaking, so I think it's about harnessing that resource of people that actually have Welsh, but they're not confident to use it.
And certainly that will be supported within the new qualifications, Vicky. As you know, we promote within the professional development part of the qualifications for individuals to recognise and value the Welsh that they have and seek to develop that Welsh. And also, right through all of the qualifications, there is recognition of the value of Welsh and Welsh speaking within the sector.
Brilliant. Can I thank you both for joining us today on the panel, and for colleagues who did submit questions in advance. There's a number of other comments in the chat that we'll make sure that we capture to feed into the various strands of work on qualifications and recruitment, which have been in particular two of the areas that came up today. And I can also see retention and how we encourage colleagues to also stay within the sector being an important feature as we move forward too. So diolch yn fawr to Suzi, Vicky for joining us today. Colleagues, we're now going to be moving back into workshop sessions. You should have now done 2 workshops. Over the next 40 minutes, you can attend another 2 workshops before we come to the close of today's conference. So you should hopefully be familiar now. If you go up to the events at the top, you'll get a drop-down menu and you can pick to go into a workshop that you haven't already attended. Diolch everyone. I'll see you shortly.